the ultimate Barner.
War Eagle, baby!
War Eagle.
War Eagle, hey!
The lifelong Bammer.
Roll Tide, Bama Nation.
Roll Tide. This is the Tigers and Tide Podcast. All the latest news from Auburn, Alabama, and the SEC. Here are your hosts, Brett Mason and Jamie Thomas.
There's been a lot of comparison about this 2014 version of the Auburn Tigers compared to the 2013 squad that, of course, went to the national championship and lost there in a heartbreaking last seconds loss to the Florida State Seminoles. So I thought we'd break out some stats and compare them so far. Of course, we only got 6 games in so far this season, but I think it's pretty clear as to what has happened to this team as compared to last year. And you can sum it all up to offense, which is kind of odd in a way, but then again, when you think about it and consider it, it's not the heart and soul of any offense is the offensive line, and I think we're seeing a breakdown there. But just comparing some stats here, if you look at the offense this year compared to last year in terms of rushing yards, we're averaging 66 less rushing yards a game. That's pretty considerable when comparing 2014 to 2013. Last year, we averaged 328, just slightly more than that. And this year, it's 262, which is quite a significant drop. And, of course, our total offensive yards are off by a little more than 13 yards a game on average. First downs is down a little bit as well, nearly averaging 1 less a game, which is pretty significant. But I think the big thing that jumps out is these offensive penalties, which we've seen a lot of. 15 more, 16 really, it's 15.9, so 16 more on average a game. And of course, when you're averaging them out like that, you don't really see where they get heavily loaded up on one game. So, in 1 or 2 games this season, you've seen a lot more of them than those average 16, and they really affected the game. All that coming from the offensive side of the ball. On the other hand, the bright spot of this Auburn squad this year for 2014 is the defense. Passing yards, we're giving up 45 less this year. Rushing yards, 41 less this year. Total offense, 87. I mean, you're knocking off right at 90 yards a game. They're giving up less this season as compared to last season. A little more than 2 first downs a game better this year. Penalties, better on defensive penalties this year. Which is pretty remarkable, and in total penalty yards or yardage from penalties lost, we're 3 better on average per game this year. So the defense has really stepped up, and it's pretty clear that our issues this year are on offense. I don't think it's any kind of secret that we could have predicted some of this. We had a lot of issues with the offensive line early. We had some injuries. We had some people moved around, shifted to different positions. Not having Greg Robinson at left tackle, I think, has just been huge this year. You're seeing some of that on the field. That being said, it's not a horrible offensive line, but, last year, 2013, the offense could just run the ball at will. They're averaging, I don't know what it was, some astronomical 6-7 yards a carry. It didn't matter what the defense tried, whether we were sweeping or running between the tackles. The Auburn offense just couldn't be stopped on rushing. They just couldn't be stopped. And, of course, rushing sets up everything. Even last year when you didn't pass that much, when you were rushing that much with that much authority, defenses had to commit to that. And so it allowed really easy pass plays, which is a lot of what you saw Nick Marshall complete last year. A lot of missed assignments, a lot of wide open receivers, and he's capable of that. This year, the rushing game isn't quite as dominant. It's not busting open the defense like that, so they don't have to respect that game quite as much. And Nick Marshall's having to make better throws. Now, he has better receivers. In action is, I don't think there's any doubt that Duke Williams is just phenomenal. Sammy Coates, of course, was here last year, but he's phenomenal. So he has some top-notch receivers out there getting the job done for him, but the passes he's having to make are more difficult passes in general. and he's also getting pressured more. The offensive line just isn't protecting him quite as well. So even if it doesn't come down to a sack for yardage loss, which that is happening some, even if it's just a little bit more pressure, a little bit more hurried, having to think a little bit more out of the box, and then having to throw in a little bit tighter coverages, all these things are affecting the overall offensive scheme. And I think that's pretty clear that that's the difference between this squad and last year's squad. Can they work it out? Hopefully the defense will continue to improve. The more the defense can step up and even more so help shut down some offenses, which they had some problems against Mississippi State, which is a very high-powered offense, probably the most high-powered offense we'll play this year. That's the good news. Can they improve? I think they can, and I think the offense can improve as well. I think that's something that we're going to be looking at as the year goes on. If you fix these penalties where we're averaging 16 yards a game on penalties, it's going to convert to more first downs. It's going to convert to more forward yardage maintained. I mean, when you lose forward momentum because of penalties, it just kills the offense. The offensive line, halfway through the season, you would think they've probably improved in dramatic terms as about as much as they're going to improve. But there could be some tweaks made, and then there's going to be some scheming issues. The coaches and the guys that are drawing up the X's and O's, may need to look at scheming around the line in a little bit different way. I think there's some great possibilities, and I think there's a chance if Auburn can improve. They can figure out what things they do really well. That was one of the keys to the season last year was early on. They figured out this is what we do well. This is what we're going with. And they've not exactly tried to duplicate last year's offense, but to a degree they have. And I think it's time for maybe those geniuses, with the boards drawn up X's and O's to see what is it that we are doing really well, and let's just do a lot of that. See if we can do a lot of that. So we'll see if we pull it out. Auburn fans, hope is not lost. I really think there is a chance that we can win out the rest of the season, which of course would keep us in the playoff conversation. So we'll just have to see what happens over this bye week, what kind of changes they make, what kind of improvements we make, and of course we'll be looking at that 2 Saturdays from now.
Tigers and Tide is a weekly podcast covering football in the state of Alabama and the SEC. We don't claim to be football gurus or talking heads. We're fans just like you. If you like the show, please take a moment to share the link to this episode on your Facebook page. And don't forget to like our page at facebook.com/Tigers and Tide. That's facebook.com/Tigers and Tide. Have a great weekend and War Eagle.
War Eagle, hey!
And roll Tide.